Hi guys, this is Vineet, and in today's video we will discuss about deadlocks and the blocking connections. So let's move on to notes. Uh, okay, so let's talk about these two basic problems. So these are the common problems you will encounter while using the databases. The two problems are deadlocks. The first one is deadlock, and the another one is the blocking connections. So when they occur, they basically occur or usually occur when many users are making connections to a database. So deadlocks and blocking connections usually occur when multiple users try to connect to database. Now let's talk about what a deadlock is. So basically when these deadlocks can occur. So basically deadlocks can occur when two users have locks on separate objects. So there are two users here and there are two separate objects and each user has a lock on each individual object, and both of these users wants a lock on other user object, and each user wait for other user to release the lock. So basically the scenario is there are two resources and there are two users, so each user has access or lock to their own resource, and at the same time each of these users want a lock on other user resource. So when this situation happens, a deadlock occurs. Second situation is blocking. So this situation is little bit different from deadlocks. So blocking occurs when one connection holds a lock on particular resource and second connection waits for that resource to be released, or second connection wants a conflicting lock type. So basically if a second connection wants a conflicting lock type, and it needs to wait for the first resource to release the lock on that particular resource on which the second connection requires a lock, and this causes the second connection to wait or to block the first connection. So what are the drawbacks of these two situations, the deadlocks and the blocking? So both of these resources causes the degradation in the server performance if there are frequent locks or frequent deadlocks or frequent blockings. It decreases the server performance. And although SQL Server do have a mechanism to detect and correct these kind of deadlocking situations, but if you want to manually remove a deadlock, then you might need to kill a blocking process or the session ID. And there's a view which we discussed earlier as well in our previous videos. So there's a view system tranlocks view, which is a dynamic management view, and this can be used to obtain the information about active locks on the system. So let me take you through a scenario. Give me a moment. So yeah, you can use this dynamic management view, DM tranlock view, to obtain information about the active task, and whatever information this view provides. Let me open up SQL Server quickly. Let's wait for it to open. Alright, so SQL Server is open. Let me quickly connect to the database. So I'm connected to it. Let's pick one of the databases inside the server. For our example, we are picking up the Northwind database, and that is the only one available to us. So let's execute a new query against it. Let's wait for query to open. Alright, so you need to trigger a select command. Select star from the dynamic management view is sysdm tranlocks, which refers to transaction locks. So let's execute the statement. We had discussed about the columns that appear in this table. So currently there are 4 locks to the different databases. 3 of the locks are on database ID 4 and one of the lock is on database ID 5. and all of them are shared locks. We had discussed about these columns in one of our earlier videos, so I would suggest you guys to go through that video to get more details on that. So, so this command returns the list of locks in the in the Northwind database, and in the results set which we have got, these are basically the result is organized into two columns or two main groups, you can say. So there are some columns which are indicating resource groups, and the other columns are indicating a request group. So the column that begins with the resource keyword gives information about the resource on which the lock request is being made. So for example, here it is indicating the lock request is being made on the database resource. And there is another set of group which is a request group, and it describes the lock request itself. So here it is indicating the request type which is lock, and request status is the lock is granted. So yeah, we have discussed about these two groups now. Let's take a look at the activity monitor. So basically here we are getting the database IDs, but if you take a look at activity monitor, so let me go to activity monitor. The activity monitor returns the actual database name. Uh, uh, Whereas if you take a look at query, it just gives you the database ID of the database. And you need to, if you want to get information of what database these database IDs are associated to, then you can simply execute a query. Select star from sys.databases is the view, which you can check out. So if I run both of these statements, you will get the idea. So fourth is the MSDB database, and the fifth one is the Northwind database. You get information from here. But if you take a look at activity monitor under the resource weight column, in the resource weight column, it doesn't give the information about the database name. But if we take a look at processes column here, so here it gives the database name here in this column. So yeah, here we are using the Northwind database. So yeah, activity monitor returns the actual database name. The resource database ID column returns the database ID, this one, which you can check in the sys databases dynamic management view to know which exact database it's referring to. And basically database IDs are set on a per server basis, but yeah, let's ignore that. Um, we have just shown you how you can check the name of the database using the sys databases dynamic management view. Now let's talk again about the results we have received in the sysdm tran lock statement. So there is a column request session ID, this one. This column basically tracks the process IDs through which these locks are being made, or the session IDs. So if we talk about the session ID of this particular tab, it is section ID 63, given somewhere here at the bottom. So if we just highlight the row here, you see 63 is coming on, or over the top you can also see 63. So for this tab, the request session ID is 63. There are other session IDs opened as well, which have locks on various resources, database resources. So process IDs are basically tracked internally by SQL Server, And these are not the process IDs associated with the operating system. So here if we open task manager, so operating system has its own set of process IDs. Here in the details column you can go and check. Here some of the process IDs are coming, but these session IDs or these process IDs are SQL Server specific. So these are not associated to Windows process IDs. So what if you want to determine the association between the SQL Server process IDs and the Windows thread IDs or the process IDs? You can run the following query. You can write that query along with me. So type the select keyword. So for now I'm doing select star from. There's a view. So what is that view? So that view is DMOS task. And this view gives us the information about, so I'm referring it to is OTSK or O task, operating system threads, or maybe I can say O threads, OS threads. Let's take this name, OS threads. And we need to make inner join, or just you can say join. Let me take inner join. So this table refers to the operating system threads, and we need to join it with the dynamic management view. So there's a little bit of confusion. So the first one is OS tasks, and you need to make a join it with OS threads. So let's take this as OS tasks, referring to task. I'm making it a join with system OS threads. Threads are operating system threads, and let's mark it as threads. And we are making a join on common column. So the common column for OS tasks, the common column is worker address, and same column in the OS threads worker address. And we are taking some conditions where OS tasks dot session ID is not null. So we are referring to sessions, and we are ordering it by the OS task session ID using the same column. We are taking the ascending order. So let's try to execute this. We have taken two dynamic management view. What is one is DMOS task and another one is DMOS thread. Let's see what information we get. All right. So let's go through this. Give me a moment, guys. So guys, let's see what's coming on in this column. So I think earlier we have seen the transaction log view. Now it is OS task and OS threads view. Let's see. So here we have some of the session ID which refers to SQL session IDs. So for this process, we have 63 as the session ID. And let's see the OS information if it gives us. So it is giving us the OS thread ID information association. So it is mapped to this particular thread ID. 63 thread ID is mapped to OS thread ID 844. Let's see what OS thread ID 844 is. So what was the thread ID 844? Let's see if it's listed there. So this is not there, although it's coming up over there. 844 is not coming. So we are talking about thread IDs, but these are process IDs. So you can obtain more information. You can add additional columns over here. Let's see if that is possible. Select columns you can do. And in addition to process ID, you can add the thread ID. Let's see if the thread ID column is available. So yeah, threads are there. Let's see. So yeah, and this is the thread ID. So we can sort by thread ID. The descending order. Let's mark it as ascending. So thread ID. What was the thread ID? Thread ID was 844, but yeah, here if we take a look, it's not giving us that particular thread ID. Maybe it's not present anymore or not showing up here. Let's try to execute this one and see if we can make up an association between that. So here if we take a look, the session ID is 63. Yeah, it's giving us the thread ID as 844. Let's see any other columns which can gives us some meaningful information. No. So basically it is saying that the server thread ID is 844, but somehow I am not able to locate that thread ID over here. So let's leave it for now. But yeah, that query is generally being used to make an association between the session ID in SQL Server and the associated was thread ID. So yeah, let's leave it here. So let's cover one more section in here. Let's go back to the notes. Let's move on to next section. We'll cover it here. So another section is about how you can track the command execution in SQL Server. And there are situations when you want to track the commands that users are executing within your SQL Server. And you can check activity monitor under those scenarios. So if you go to activity monitor, you can see which all processes are executing under the processes tab by the various users. So here it is giving us details about the various processes, and go back to notes. So let me take you through one of the demos, and before I okay, let's first go through one of the demos. So let's go inside SQL Server. So we are already connected to the database engine, and we have already opened the activity monitor. Otherwise you can right click and open up the activity monitor, and we have already expanded the process panel. So there are some entries like session IDs and the user process. User process one indicates that this process is invoked by user, and there is a login column as well. So login indicates which particular user is executing this particular command against which database. So these three column first first three columns can be used to track user sessions and the processes they are using. And we can right click on a particular process and to get more details on something. So here let me take the details on the Northwind process, this process 63, which is being executed against the Northwind database, and it is the user process invoked by beneath. So let's go into details of this process. So this gives us the session details, what's happening inside that session. So it is giving me the last query which was executed by the session. So here is the query. So using this you can get details of any particular session. So this dialog basically shows the last command batch executed by the user. This was the one executed by me earlier. This one. All right, and so let's go back there, and in order to check which are the commands which are currently being executed, as this is the last batch which was executed, you can refresh the view to see the latest command which are being executed by the user. And we can do this refresh periodically, and we can kill the processes from here as well. So if we want to kill this particular 63 process ID, we can do it from here, and it gives us a prompt. There you can choose yes. Now let's talk about killing of server processes. Why do we want to kill it? Let's go to note. So basically, sometimes you want to stop particular process that are blocking other processes to run, or that are using too much of CPU time. Maybe there is a process which may be running from 10 hours. You want to kill that process. So those are the situations. There might be a process which is blocking other processes. You might want to kill those processes, right? So let's go to SQL Server. So this is the way you can kill the process. So we have accessed the database engine instance. We have already opened up the activity monitor. We are already in the processes session. We have got the details, and we can directly kill process as well. So for example, we want to kill this one. We can choose it directly from here to kill the process, and it prompts us whether you want to kill that process. If we say yes, it kills that process. So if you will see, then that process disappeared from the this particular list. And if we take a look there, yeah, that process is killed. So just for a note, rather than killing a process in SQL Server, try to stop the application that is connected to the process and restart it to check if the issue is resolved. Otherwise, you need to kill the process if you are not able to determine. So guys, I thank you so much for your time on this. Please subscribe to my channel and hit on the like button if you really like this video. Also share this video with your friends if they want to get more insight on the blocking and resource waits, on the blocking and deadlocks. You may refer this video to them, and also please refer my channel to your friends so that they can become expert in SQL Server. All right, thank you so much. Have a nice day. Bye bye.